The July 12th, 2023 Arlington County Board of Zoning Appeals is now in session. Good evening and welcome. I am Richard Kaplan, Chair of the Board. The Board is made up of 5 citizens appointed by the Circuit Court. In addition to myself, we have Vice Chair Inta Malice, Judy Freshman, Portia Clark, and Lindsay Arthurs. Also present is the professional staff, including Blake Bowen, Board of Zoning Appeals Coordinator, Meg Ryan, BZA Associate Planner, Brett Goldberg, BZA Associate Planner, and Stephen Rissy, Zoning Prim Supervisor. Also with us is Patty Petrosini, the Assistant to the BZA Board. We thank you for being here and extend a warm welcome. To avoid disruptions, we ask that you please turn your cell phones or pagers off or put them in silent mode. Before we begin tonight's hearing, I will discuss this board's powers and the procedures for tonight's hearing. The board's powers are prescribed in the Code of Virginia and are set forth in further detail in the county's zoning ordinance adopted by the county board. The Board of Zoning Appeals does not have the power to rezone property or to amend the regulations set forth in the ordinance. That authority rests solely with the county board. This board does have the authority to do 3 things. First, the BZA can approve use permits that allow modifications of placement requirements for structures on 1- and 2-family lots where there is no option in the zoning ordinance to allow such modifications. In order to approve a use permit, the law requires that this board find that the proposal's use permit will not adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing in the neighborhood, will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood, and will not be in conflict with the purposes of the master plan and land use and zoning related policies of the county. In making these findings, the BZA shall consider whether the modification will promote the compatibility of the development with the surrounding neighborhood because the structure's overall size, footprint, and placement are similar to those of the structures on the property surrounding the lot in question, and whether the modification will help preserve natural landform, historical features, and/or significant trees or foliage. When approving use permits, the Board of Zoning Appeals may impose conditions that it deems necessary and in the public interest, including but not limited to the duration of the use permit. Second, the BZA can grant variances from the specific requirements of the zoning ordinance. When granting variances, the burden of proof is on the applicant to prove by a preponderance of the evidence that it meets the following criteria. The strict application of the ordinance would unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property, or that granting the variance would alleviate a hardship due to a physical condition relating to the property or improvements thereon, and the property for which the variance is being requested was acquired in good faith and any hardship was not created by the applicant. Next, that the variance granted will not be a substantial detriment to the adjacent property and nearby properties in the proximity of the geographic area, and that the condition or situation of the property concerned is not so general or reoccurring in nature as to make reasonably practical the adoption of an amendment to the ordinance. The granting of the variance will not result in a use that is not otherwise permitted on the property or change the zoning classification of the property, and that the relief or remedy obtained through the variance is not available through a special exception process as provided under the zoning or subdivision ordinance. Lastly, the BZA can decide appeals of decisions from the zoning administrator. When deciding appeals of the zoning administrator, the board must use its judgment to determine if the administrator was correct. Now on to tonight's hybrid hearing. For those who are participating in person, on the front table, you will find a QR code linking to a copy of the application package, including the staff report for each case before us this evening. For those participating virtually, a copy of each application package can be found on the Arlington County BZA website. There is also a link in the chat for the application packages. I recommend that if you have not seen that report for your case, that you review that report before your case is called. If you are attending virtually and lose connectivity, please reconnect with us by phone. If you are attending via Teams, please keep yourself muted and cameras off until called upon. Turn off the sound on any other devices around you to minimize interference. When called upon to speak, please turn on your camera and unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is located in the meeting command bar. County staff does not have the ability to unmute you. The meeting chat is active for technical support assistance only. The meeting chat should not be used for discussion, public comments, questions about agenda items, or requests for more information. All public comments must be shared verbally or have been previously provided in writing for the record during the assigned public testimony period. This evening, staff will call each case and will provide a brief staff report and recommendation. Next, board members will ask any questions of staff they may have. Applicant or their representative will be given an opportunity to make comments to support the application or appeal. Next, all speakers for the item will be called. Speakers must fill out a speaker slip either online or in person. In person, the speaker slips are available on the table in the front of the room. After we hear from speakers for and against the proposal, the board may permit the applicant a brief opportunity to clarify any points. The board may ask questions of any speakers, but does not permit any cross-examination or direct questioning by others. For tonight's hearing, this board has deemed the following time limits for speakers to be sufficient: 20 minutes for applicants of appeals, 5 minutes for applicants of use permits and variances. We have deemed 3 minutes for representatives of organizations and 2 minutes for individuals as sufficient. After the board has gathered all the information we need and have discussed the case, we will decide the matter by voting on a motion duly made and seconded. A majority is needed to approve any motion. Public comments will take place only within the allotted timeframes. During public comments, a speaker timer will be displayed on the screen and speaker podium. Please be respectful of the time allotted. This is a public forum and tonight's meeting will be recorded and posted on the county's website. All information associated with tonight's meeting, whether spoken or written, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. Any appeal from the decision of this board must be made to the circuit court in accordance with state law. After your case of interest is heard, you're welcome to stay for the balance of the session or leave at your convenience. Again, thank you for being here this evening. Mr. Bowen, before we call the first case, it is my understanding that there are no appeals that have been filed other than the appeal that is the subject of the ongoing litigation. Is that correct?
Yes, we had an appeal filed in April that was withdrawn. That's the only appeal we've had filed this year.
When was that withdrawn?
April 23rd, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Apply for a use permit and accidentally hit appeal because they saw Board of Zoning Appeals.
I think I recall that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my question was more about from the last time.
Gotcha.
Yes,
yeah,
but
no new appeals.
I was
and
unclear.
no intended appeals.
Okay, one last item. Before we call the first case, I believe we have a couple of items on the consent agenda for tonight. For the public's benefit, the consent agenda is used by this board to quickly decide on agenda items that are complete and non-controversial. An item can be removed from the consent agenda at any time by a board member or will be removed from the consent agenda if a member of the public desires to comment on the case, either for or against. Mr. Bowen, can you please call the cases listed on the consent agenda on this slide?
Yes, Mr. Kaplan, would you like me to read just the case numbers and addresses now, or the full case descriptions? Absolutely. Okay.
I'm sorry. Actually, let me ask the public if there's anyone here to speak first before we read all the cases.
Yeah, we'll do.
Is there anyone here to speak on it for or against any of these cases, either virtually or in person? Do any board members have any comments about these cases? Okay, let's read them.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right. The first case on our group motion of approval is case number V-11852-23-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Rahal Rahibi on behalf of NCD Group LLC to permit a right side setback of 0.8 feet to the wall, 0.3 feet to the eave instead of 1 foot to the wall and eaves as required, and to permit a rear setback of 1.3 feet to the air conditioning unit instead of 8 feet as required regarding after the fact approval of a new detached garage and air conditioning unit to an existing one-family dwelling in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 927 North Nottingham Street within the Madison Manor Civic Association. The second case is case number V-11854-23-UP-3. This is a use permit request by Mark Cerny on behalf of Rekia Alayer, the owner, to permit a right side setback of 7.6 feet to the wall of the addition and porch instead of 8.3 feet as previously approved, and to permit an aggregate side yard width of 8.7 feet instead of 9.4 feet as previously approved regarding modification of BZA use permit V-11777-22-UP-2 for a side addition and rear porch to an existing one-family dwelling on a corner lot in the R5 zoning district on the premises known as 647 23rd Street South in the Aurora Highlands Civic Association. The third case is case number V-11857-23-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Mark Yates on behalf of Bruce and Margaret Reel, the owner, to permit a right side setback of 6.4 feet to the addition wall and deck instead of 8 feet as required regarding a new addition with garage and deck above to an existing one-family dwelling on a corner lot in the R8 zoning district on the premises known as 6701 29th Street North within the Arlington East Falls Church Civic Association. The final case in the group motion of approval is case number V-11858-23-UP-2. This is a use permit request by Mary Curtius and Ori Nur, the owners, to permit a left side setback of 14.8 feet to the side addition instead of 15.3 feet as previously approved regarding a modification of BZA use permit V-768-22-UP-1 for a new side addition to an existing one-family dwelling on a pipe stem lot in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 5412 26th Street North within the Yorktown Civic Association. The staff recommendation in all four of these cases is to approve the use permit request as requested, subject to the conditions listed.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Now that the cases have been called, are there any speakers for or against these proposals in the room or online, virtually? Would you like to speak on your case? Okay. Nope. Thank you. Board. Anyone? Motions?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the group motion as stated.
I'll second.
Motion made by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Ms. Clark. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Ms. Malice. Ms. Freshman.
Aye.
Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion to grant these four approvals passes 5-0. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Bowen, can you call the first case on our normal agenda?
Yes, Mr. Kaplan. The first case on the agenda otherwise is case number V-11846-23-VA-1. This is a carryover item and a variance request by Highland Street LLC on behalf of Scott Wetzel and Jane Eilbacher, the owners, to permit a street setback of 16.5 feet to the wall and eave instead of 25 feet to the wall, 21 feet to the eave as required from 2nd Street South, and to permit a new addition which exceeds 50% of the total aggregate floor area contained in the existing building on a non-conforming lot in the RA 818 zoning district regarding a new rear addition to an existing semi-detached dwelling on a corner lot in the RA 818 zoning district on the premises known as 200 South Courthouse Road within the Penrose Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution approving the variance request with conditions. Please note that we did have supplemental material that came in for this case. The supplemental material includes a BZA comment form as well as an email from the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Do my colleagues have any questions for staff on this item?
I thought I read something about a speaker, someone who wanted to come and speak. Is that?
We didn't receive a BZA comment form, but not a sign-up slip to speak.
Okay, thank you.
I assume the applicants are with us. Yes, I remember you from last time. Please go ahead.
Sure, we'll just make brief remarks as we discussed this, fairly extensively last time. I'm Jane Eilbacher. This is my husband, Scott Wetzel. We live in a duplex in the Penrose neighborhood.
I think you need to raise
Oh,
so you can speak into the mic.
see. Okay, is that clear? We live in a duplex in the Penrose neighborhood. We are requesting a variance to expand our duplex. The variance is twofold. One, we're on a non-conforming lot, so requesting a variance on the side yard, and then also for the square footage, over 50% of the existing square footage. We are, we love the neighborhood where we live. It's where we want to continue to raise our family, and are really just looking to expand the house to make that possible for the years to come. So happy to answer any questions about the supplemental material since last meeting.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Ms. Arthurs?
I wasn't here last week. Can somebody tell me why we deferred this, just so that I know?
This was deferred because the 2-2 would have deadlocked.
Got it.
So instead of deadlocking, we just deferred it. Ms. Malice?
Well, there was some neighbor issues, correct?
Yeah, so there was one objection that we learned of live during the meeting, that they had submitted a comment. They had raised some concerns about stormwater drainage at the corner, some trees in the backyard, and sort of general look to the neighborhood of having the addition. We had responded during the meeting. We are also concerned about the stormwater drainage with last week's rains. There was significant flooding, but that really goes beyond the scope of this project. We're not planning on cutting down the trees in question. And in terms of the kind of look and feel, this is something that we're committing significant resources to, and so are committed to making it fit in with the neighborhood and the appropriate look. We did attempt to contact that commenter by a Facebook message. We didn't have other contact information for him, and just said we're happy to have a in-person conversation about it, but we did not hear back.
Did you knock on the door?
We didn't. It's an apartment complex, and so we weren't able to kind of get to that specific unit.
So can I?
Are
Which,
they at the Meyerton across the street?
No, I believe, I'm sorry, I don't have the printout in front of me. I thought the comment last time was 519 South Courthouse.
so I'm looking at comments.
Are you looking at one from 202? We can talk about that.
That's what I'm
one,
looking
too.
at. Is that not
Oh,
the right
yeah,
one?
that's the recent one.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can talk about 202 separately.
Sorry, I don't mean to jump ahead.
So the supplemental material we have, is this old or new since we heard it?
Sorry, 202 is since last time. I thought we were talking about the one that came up last time.
Ms. Malice, I think there were 2 complaints in the supplemental.
That's what I'm trying to.
So
figure-
there's 202, and then do you know the address of the second
I
one?
believe it was 519, if I'm remembering correctly. His name was
That's far.
Chris Hoser.
That might not be supplemental. That might have moved.
It might have gotten moved because that was,
That
was
should be in the
last meeting.
application packet.
Yeah,
So the letter to dear Scott and Jane
yes.
from Isabel and Lewis is new.
So Isabel and Luis own 202, which is the duplex with which we share a wall. So we're 200. We have been working to engage them on this project since March 27th of this year. We initially reached out to them via email. They live outside the country, and the home is a rental property. So we've been in our house for just over 8 years now. It's been a rental the entire time that we've been there. And our understanding is it will remain that way. They own another home in Arlington when they're in the States. So we reached out to them via email back in March and just let them know that we were contemplating doing this project. They asked for us to send the plans when we had them. We sent the plans on April 18th, which was the day that all the materials were submitted to the BZA. So the same day everything got submitted to you all. They, from kind of April 18th through June, there was a series of back and forth and questions where they sent a few questions. We sent responses. They requested a Zoom meeting, which we did on June 9th. And then on June 13th, which was immediately prior to the last BZA meeting, so the last one was the 14th, the night of the 13th, they sent us a fairly extensive email with various requests, including replacing their landscaping, the choice of finishes for the exterior of the addition, replacing the fence. They explicitly said that they had told the tenants not to sign a letter of support. So there were a variety of kind of 11th hour requests. Given the nature of some of those, it took us longer than 24 hours to respond. And so they had sent a comment the day of the BZA hearing saying they hadn't heard back from us. We have since responded to that message. That's also included in the supplemental material. We responded on June 20th And we have not heard back from them since then.
So did you address any of the issues that they raised?
We did, yeah. So what we said was that we would be willing to replace the fence. I think you guys could actually see it in some of the pictures, but if you're interested, I brought pictures. But we would be willing to replace the fence. We had already committed to that. So this fence with our lovely skeleton. Didn't realize
You never know when they're coming.
Yeah. That fence in question, we said we're willing to replace. We had already committed that to them. Their concern about the landscaping was that they thought there would be. We do have a picture if that's helpful. Here, Scott, if you want to.
I know the
Have
house,
them.
it's fine.
Okay. They thought there might be decreased sunlight, which could affect the landscaping. Our response to that was that, we've lived there 8 years. Each of the tenants has done sort of different things with the landscaping. So the prior tenants had a small vegetable garden. The tenants now have, various lawn furniture and they use the yard. And so we're willing to work with the tenants if it appears that there is an issue, but we can't make sort of a blanket commitment to replacing the landscaping. And then the final issue was around the look, the kind of finishes, and some requests around having brick in certain areas. And similarly, we acknowledged to them, this is something we're making a significant financial commitment in. We are very committed to it looking nice and not looking kind of cheap and tacky, but we can't commit to specific finishes at this point. We haven't done that level of design, and that sort of was beyond something we could commit to via email at this juncture.
So they wanted you to fix their fence and make their place look better. And okay. And then 519 South Courthouse is almost 3 blocks away.
Correct.
On the other side of South Courthouse from you guys.
And so we had asked them, we followed up with them we sent the message June 20th. We asked if they could follow up with us by July 1st so that we'd have some time before this meeting. We didn't hear from them by July 1st, so we sent another message on the 4th, I believe. And we have not heard from them since then.
Could you elaborate a little more on what the current facade on the outside is expected to look like?
Sure. So you mean what we expect the facade of the addition to look like?
Right.
Yeah, I anticipate it will likely be some type of siding. Our intention is not to try to do brick, just that would be somewhat cost prohibitive. And I think it's hard to match the brick. And so I don't know that it would be like a meaningfully better look. So probably siding.
I don't think I've seen anybody do a renovation that extends the brick, unfortunately. It is just too hard and too costly.
Yeah.
Any other questions from my colleagues?
I think everybody probably knows where they stand, right? It's probably me.
Discussion with the board.
Are there any speakers?
Sorry, yes. Are there any speakers? I believe there were none, but are there any?
We had none that signed up in advance.
Thank you, Meg.
They can speak up while we are discussing. Any questions for staff or the applicant or discussion with the board?
I'll make a motion if you want.
Ready for motions? Motions.
Oh, I'm at the wrong place. Hold on. I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the variance for V-11846-23-VA-1, subject to the conditions.
Second.
A motion made by Ms. Arthurs and seconded by Ms. Freshman. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Mellis.
I will, this is not prejudice against your project, but I have a longstanding issue with the R27, and I think you all know about that.
Yeah, I will second that. I will call the roll. Ms. Mellis.
No.
Ms. Freshman.
Aye.
Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes no. The motion to grant the application passes 3-2.
Thank you all.
Good luck with your
We
project.
appreciate your consideration.
Mr. Bowen, can you please call the next case?
Yes, Mr. Kaplan. The next case is case number V-11850-23-VA-1. This is a variance request by Olubuseo Akambi, the owner, to permit a new addition which exceeds 50% of the floor area contained in the existing building regarding a new rear and upper level addition to an existing semi-detached dwelling in the R27 zoning district on the premises known as 848 North Buchanan Street within the Bluemont Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution approving the variance with conditions. At this time, we do not have any supplemental material nor any speakers signed up for this case.
And any questions for staff? Any questions for staff?
I'll just clarify that I believe I might have said the wrong street name in when I read it. Just to clarify, it's case number V-11850-23-VA-1, and that is 848 North Burlington Street.
Is the applicant with us?
They're on virtually.
Good evening. You're muted, I think. We can't hear you. I think you're muted. I think you are still muted. We cannot hear you. There you go. Good job. Would you like to speak to your application?
Sure. As mentioned, I'm requesting a variance for the side yard as well as the sizing. I'm trying to build a 3-story addition. I really love the area. I don't see myself moving from it. I just want to expand as my life expands as well. And I've lived in the Arlington area for the past 15 years, and I don't see myself moving in the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Are there questions of the board for this applicant? Nothing. We're quiet tonight. I assume that there are still no new speakers for this item.
Not that I'm aware of. No, no one signed up.
Discussion with the board.
The property
Ms.
next,
Yeah, Ms. Arthur, sorry.
no, sorry. The property next door has an addition on the back of it, correct? It's just 2
Yeah.
stories instead of the 3 that you want to build, and a little further back.
Both properties have additions on it. The one attached to me has a 3-level one, and then the one next to it has a 2-level.
I did a site visit and I was concerned about the 3rd story, but that is not uncommon in this neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, if the house next door already has 3 stories.
Right.
Yeah.
Any further discussion or motions?
I can make a motion if everybody's ready.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion. I just got to scroll to the spot. I thought I was there again. I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached proposed resolution approving the variance V-11850-23-VA-1, subject to the conditions.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Arthur, seconded by Ms. Freshman. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I would
Ms.
be supporting this motion for the longstanding issue I have with our 27 approvals of variances.
Thank you, Ms. Malice. I will call the roll. Ms. Malice,
No.
Ms. Freshman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes no. The motion to grant the application passes 3-2. Thank you and good luck with your project.
We have another
Thank
one.
you.
Oh, we do have another one.
Permit.
Can you please call the associated use permit? Don't
Yes,
go
Mr.
anywhere.
Kaplan. The associated use permit for this project is case number V-11850-23-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Olubuseo Akambi, the owner, to permit a left side setback of 8.4 feet to the wall of the addition, 8 feet to the eave, and 5.4 feet to the stoop instead of 14 feet to the wall of the addition, 10 feet to the eave and stoop as required regarding a new rear and upper level addition to an existing semi-detached dwelling in the R27 zoning district on the premises known as 848 North Burlington Street within the Bluemont Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions. As with the variance, there are no speakers to sign up for this case or any supplemental materials that have been submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Any questions for staff on the use permit?
Motion?
Does the applicant wish to speak for this, or can we continue?
We can continue.
Excellent. Motion.
I move Board of Zoning Appeals approve the attached proposed resolution granting use permit V-11850-23-UP1, subject to the conditions listed.
Second.
A motion made this time by Ms. Freshman and seconded by Ms. Arthurs. Any further discussion with the board? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Ms. Malice,
Yes.
Ms. Freshman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion to grant this use permit passes 5-0. Now, good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Mr. Bowen, can you please call the next case on the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Kaplan, the next case on the agenda is case number V-11851-23-UP-2. This is a use permit request by Richard and Avery Reese, the owners, to permit a right side setback of 6.8 feet to the wall of the addition instead of 10 feet as required, to permit a left side setback of 6 feet to the porch instead of 10 feet as required, and to permit an aggregate side yard width of 12.8 feet instead of 18 feet as required regarding a new 2-story addition and screened porch to an existing one-family dwelling in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 4629 Henderson Road within the Arlington Forest Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions. Please note for this case, we do have supplemental material. This includes an email of opposition from the adjacent neighbor, as well as 2 BZA comment forms from one neighboring property.
Mr.
Not have any speakers for this case.
Mr. Bowen, is this the case where I recall seeing a neighbor requesting a deferral?
I believe the BZA comment form did request a deferral.
I just
You're
want
correct,
to
yes.
point that out. Okay. Questions for staff from the board?
Trying to manage my my supplemental material here, and I'm trying to figure out which is which.
4629.
Mr. Bowen, have you?
I thought I had them in order, but
I think it's that
Sorry.
one.
this is for 55, right?
This is for 52.
52.
Mr. Bowen,
Got it. All right. I got
have
it.
you heard from Mike Curley since have you had been in communication with
Yeah.
Mr. Curley since the supplemental was released?
Sorry, what was the name that you asked about?
Mike Curley, this is the
The adjacent neighbor to the right.
the neighbor to the right. who requested
I have
deferral.
not. I don't believe Meg. Have you either? No, I don't think
I have
anyone.
not.
And Brett, I don't think so either.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, is the applicant aware of these comments?
I haven't called the applicant up yet, so I don't know.
Okay.
No further questions for staff. I will call the applicant next.
Go ahead.
Okay, applicant, both virtually and in person.
That's right. Yeah, my name's
Might be a
Richard.
first.
Yep. So, co-owner of 4629. My wife is there at home, joining virtually, making sure our daughter is asleep.
Hopefully.
So, so we are undertaking a project to create a more open floor plan, kind of modernize the materials. Our house is built in 1941, a lot of plastic, old electricity, stuff like that. That's all interior. I understand that's not really be the purview of the BZA. Well, a little wordy on the slides. A lot of it's the staff report. I'm just going to focus on the highlights here. So essentially, there's 2 items in question. One is on the left side of our house. In the back, there's an overhanging window, and it was in one of the photos that you had previously. But our proposal is just to enclose that to make a porch. It would not add to the covered square footage of the property or anything like that. The other part that's getting a little more attention is, as you can see on the slide here on the left, is the current setback of our attached garage. It's roughly 9 inches. On the right, you can see in the render that part of the project would be to demolish the garage. The property is not exactly parallel to the property line, so it would be 6.5 to closer to 7 feet. I just said 6+ to not overstate it. So we're proposing to vastly increase the setback, but in order to maintain storage, we'd like to have, as you can see in the render, a little bit of a shed of sorts attached there. One thing I'll note is that in the staff report, they found several structures with smaller setbacks already in place. And so we believe that this would be quite compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. The other criteria, health effects, we think it promotes health and safety. Currently, to get into our house, you have to go up at least 1 long or 2 short flights of stairs. And then to get to the backyard, you have to walk around next to a retention wall. For kids, workers, visitors with accessibility issues, et cetera, ourselves potentially aging in place, which we'd like to, having an access point through the backyard would be great without having to go up any stairs. With the garage in the way, that's not really feasible right now. We believe our plan improves the public welfare as well. Enhanced curb appeal, increasing green space right now with the current setback, and that's the objecting neighbor on the garage side. He's got 9 inches away from his property an impervious surface. So when it rains, it all comes down on his house, or his yard and all those type of things. When we move it 6 feet away, we're improving his property and not, but he doesn't have to do anything for it. We believe our plan would more closely align with the zoning as well. Right now, with a setback of 6.5 feet or so on the left side, 9 inches on the right side, it's well short of the 18-foot aggregate setback. Even with the construction of our house, if we didn't put the storage in, we'd still be within the 18 feet setback. So I'd still be here talking about it. However, we need to have storage of some sort for lawn tools and stuff like that. And so it makes sense for us to put the storage there. We've also actually asked our architect and our project planner just to understand the financial impact of a quote for a detached garage. They told us for what we're looking at, $80,000 to $100,000 increase in our budget. We simply can't sustain that. So here we have the adjacent neighbor impact. I will note that the neighbor at 4623 did support the project. When I first gave it to him, there's a record of my correspondence, tried to engage him 5 times to explain, tried to explain twice over text and email. A little hard to explain zoning in that fashion. I've asked him several times to meet. We don't get really any response. He has told us that if he can have us increase the setback, he believes it increases the property value. Okay, that's great. We believe that just increasing the setback voluntarily also achieves that goal quite well. We have no legal obligation to move it. Other than that, open to questions.
Are you familiar? I assume you've seen the email from your neighbor that was given to us supplemental?
The 46. I've seen both of the supplemental ones. So it's 4623, which is adjacent, and then 4617, which is on the other side. 4617 was a surprise. I went, and as soon as I saw it on Friday, knocked on their door a couple times. Coincidentally, they're actually expanding their house and building into their setback. They didn't answer. I believe they were home, but they didn't answer. It's the first I've heard of their objection.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Ms. Malice.
So is Mr. Curley your next door neighbor?
Yeah, he's 4623 on this image here.
And you have not been able to connect with him in person?
I've had a very brief conversation with him where I was trying to be respectful and ask him to schedule a time to meet. We were both walking our dogs. I didn't want him to feel like I kind of cornered him. And that was where he said, basically, if I can get you to make your setback as big as possible, then I will.
And the objection is simply to the setback? To the setback?
That's what I understand from his correspondence with BZA staff. He told me he generally approves of the project. He just wants it to be larger.
So he's the one who asked for it to be on a date that works for him,
Yes.
but didn't say when that was.
Staff could speak to that more than, I mean, there's a.
Did he tell you when he wanted the hearing to be?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. I'm done with that one.
Mr. Bowen, if the sheds were detached from the house, is my recollection that they could then be within a foot of the property line?
They would have to be accessory buildings anchored to a permanent foundation to qualify for that.
Okay.
Depending on the construction, sometimes people buy prefabricated sheds that are not anchored, and then they would have to be 10 feet from a side lot line and to meet the
But
aggregate.
not a prefab shed. If you're building a shed, then it would need some kind of anchoring foundation, and then that could be 1 foot.
That could be 1 foot from the side lot lines, correct?
Thank you. Any more questions for this applicant or discussion with the board? Discussion with the board. Assuming that there are no other speakers that we don't know about.
I guess the speaker or the neighbor was given the opportunity to sign in virtually, but did he give any reasons why he could not do that?
No, we've had, I don't believe we've had any contact with Mr. Gurley other than the submission of the BZA comment form.
So when he said he wanted it to be a different day, that was it. He never responded again.
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah.
I mean, if my feeling on that is if he were here, I would ask him if he prefers the garage, 0.8 inches from the property line or smaller sheds further away, right? Because that's probably the choice. My guess is this applicant's not going to demolish his next garage if he can't pursue his project, right? But this neighbor is not with us, so I cannot ask my question. That being said, as I suspect Ms. Malice is going to, oh, I'm sorry, this is not an R27 case. My brain is not doing well. It's been a long day.
This is one that's still open for discussion.
This is one that's still open for discussion, right? This was not a no for me yet. Sorry, I digress.
So
Ms. Malice.
thank you. I guess my view is that the request is not unreasonable and it conforms to similar properties in the neighborhood. I'm just going to look at the chart again, but I think it does.
But it is a big project. And so that's
And-
giving, I think, everyone pause, or at
It's a
least
what project?
it's a big project. But I tend to agree.
So
with
it's
Ms. Malice.
already a big
Right.
house.
Correct. Yeah, and if my memory is correct, we're coming up against the limit for coverage.
Yes, we are.
We are under-
42.4 versus 43.
Yeah, that was,
So
I agree. So, that's always tricky because that leaves you no room for error. And as you may have noticed, there were 4 cases where there were errors today.
Survey errors, so have them double check.
We've accounted for that hopefully with our architect for being a little generous.
They all
with the
had
plat and
they
things
all
like
had
that, so-
architects.
Oh,
It's the
well.
survey.
and the 4 cases that we quickly approved today were use permits. They were not people going over their coverage. It is very difficult for us to approve over lot coverage because you would have to show hardship. So it's something to be very, very aware of going forward. Not to go over that 43%.
Yeah, hardship. I'm prepared to make a motion if the board is done having a discussion, but I can also wait.
Well, we have a second opportunity for discussion. So Ms. Arthurs.
Okay, I gotta scroll again. I'm sorry, guys. All right, I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit B-11851-23-UP-2, subject to the conditions listed.
Is there a second? A motion made by Ms. Arthur, seconded by Ms. Freshman. Is there any further discussion with the board? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Ms. Malice.
Aye.
Ms. Freshman. Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs. Chair votes aye. The motion to grant this use permit passes 5-0. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Bowen, can you please call the next case on the normal agenda?
Yes, I'll just make a brief correction. I believe I referenced to Mr. Curley's concerns. I believe I referenced a BZA comment form. They actually came in via email, so I just wanted to quickly correct that
Thank you.
notation.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, I just wanted to remark that I referenced Mr. Curley submitting a BZA comment form, and when his concerns were actually relayed via email.
Okay.
A technical correction. All right, with that, we'll move on to the very next case on the agenda, which is case number V-11852-23-UP-1. This is this is the one that we already had done. My mistake. This case number V-11852-23-UP-1 was approved in the group motion at the start of the hearing. The very next case on the agenda is this also no. Sorry, I have this noted as a group motion, but I don't believe it is.
It's V-11-V11853.
Okay, thank you. So the next case on the agenda is case number V-11853-23-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Sarah Riddlemauser on behalf of Peter and Carrie Peterson, the owners, to permit a left side setback of 8.2 feet to the wall and porch instead of 10 feet as required, a right side setback of 4.7 feet to the new second story eaves instead of 6 feet as required, and to permit an aggregate side yard width of 13.9 feet instead of 18 feet as required regarding a 2-story side addition, second floor addition, and rear and side porch additions to an existing one-family dwelling in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 3211 First Road North within the Ashton Heights Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions. Please note that while we do not have any speakers signed up to speak for this case, we do have supplemental material. The supplemental material includes from an email from the owner regarding neighborhood outreach efforts, including updated petition of support with 3 additional signatures from 2 neighboring properties, as well as a rental lease. And then the updated petition of support includes the names Ryan Stewart, Amelia Stewart, and Brooke Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Is there any questions for staff on this item? I am looking at the feedback, and my analysis, which could be completely wrong, is that we are still missing feedback from 3206 First and 136 North Irving. Does anyone else see that? Or am I missing something?
So
Which one on North Irving?
The 136 North Irving, directly behind the applicant.
Okay, but 3206 was beside or not directly
3206 is
behind.
across the street.
Was not directly behind.
so
136 is directly behind.
136 Irving is directly behind.
Is directly behind, correct?
So in the supplemental material, they address 136.
No.
There's that bit of, that the house,
Yes, they do. You are
the-
correct.
that the owner has recently passed away and they've been trying to get in touch with the heirs.
I missed that because it was on the back of the.
Yeah, well, there's a lot
you.
to read.
Thank you, Ms. Malice.
Do you happen to know why the lease is included here?
I do not know why the lease is included. The lease is for, I was looking at that a minute ago,
215.
3213, which is
15.
3215, neighbor. Maybe perhaps
the adjacent neighbor.
adjacent neighbor, maybe perhaps because the applicant wanted to inform us that it was a rental unit, is my guess. But we will ask them shortly.
Accepted their word.
Right. We will ask them in a minute. Okay, are we ready for the applicant? Applicants, you are still muted.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Carrie Peterson. This is my husband, Nick. Our family and I have lived in this house for a little bit over 8 years, and we love the neighborhood. And we hope to live here for, as long as we can, I guess. We're hoping to age in place here forever. And our goal is to just make our house a little bit bigger. Our lot is pretty long and narrow, and our house is pretty long and narrow. And we are hoping to preserve the trees that are currently in our backyard. The reason I included the lease for the house next door is because we are renting the house next door, which is the direction that our house is going towards. So this project is sort of in conjunction with the neighbors who also signed the form. But I just wanted to indicate that even though we're moving closer, we're hoping to move closer to their house. This is something that we're doing with their, support. but I'm sorry if that was confusing. And the house on Irving Street, as I mentioned in the email, we knew the previous owner who unfortunately passed away, and we've been trying to track down. I think the house is currently jointly managed by her adult children, none of whom live in Arlington. So I have sent an email to the one person that I could find contact information for, but I haven't heard back yet.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
So are you new in this house?
No, we've lived here for 8 years, but our lease at the house next door started July 1st.
Okay. And was the construction that was approved previously built
The construction approved previously?
in 2006?
Oh, that was before we lived here. I think that was the construction of the porch that's to the side now.
A two-story left side addition?
That's what the variance we're hoping to get to be able to build to the side of our house.
Mr. Bowen, was that built?
There was, excuse me, there was a 2006 BZA application, which permitted a right side yard of 5.7 feet and aggregate side yard of 12.2 feet for a two-story left side addition.
Oh,
Right,
that was
right.
never built.
So is that
It's
use
not built.
permit still in effect?
With an approved use permit, as long as it was built to those plans, it could still
Oh,
be put into effect.
But it
It's a
wasn't built
variance.
though. So building
It doesn't go away.
depends what the,
Oh, yeah.
no,
It
it
depends on if it
expired.
was, let me check.
it depends if that was a condition at the time in 2006. It might not have been.
Because if this is still a good use permit, then it's actually more generous than what the applicants are asking for.
Not a bad point.
No, it's not.
So we should
Yeah,
clarify
and
what.
it was a variance and
The
not a use
variance.
permit, so it should carry with the land in perpetuity.
Assuming that
Doesn't-
that didn't have our standard condition that it must be built within, you must pull a building permit within a year.
Correct.
Did it,
You want to check that real quick?
I might not be able to check it super quickly, but I can
Okay.
give it a try.
as I know, that condition's always been there, that a 1 year.
Were-
Yeah.
Were you on the board in 2006, Ms. Mellis?
No, no, I guess that's right. Yeah. I've been on forever, but I guess not since.
Not as long as me.
2006 doesn't seem that long ago.
I won't tell you where I was in 2006. You
Yeah,
might shoot me.
Just to clarify, did that not strike you when you were preparing this, that there's a.
Well,
potentially-
with a variance, it usually applies to the exact proposal that was built. So if there's any deviations from that proposal, it wouldn't necessarily be the same entitlement. You'd have to build to those plans.
You would have to build to those
Mhm.
plans.
Oh, okay.
So they could, if they looked it up, they could build to those plans?
If they wanted to.
If they wanted to, and if we could find those plans, which might be its own little research
We have a little
project.
technicality here because you have a variance on this property already from
And
2006.
that means, if they were to get approval, then they could have a choice. They
I think
could,
they're gonna choose their own plan. They've already paid all the design.
I mean, they might get something bigger.
A right side setback of, the right side setback is greater, so
I don't think I've ever seen that before.
you've got more on the left and less on the right.
Even know
So,
that. It's a good eye.
and an aggregate side of 12.2 instead of 13.9. So it is a little more restrictive than what you're asking for. Staff, you don't have a problem with this? It's not going to cause confusion?
No, it shouldn't. As long as we have a new approval with a new set of permit plans, I think it will be very clear. And I'm still looking for the a condition language if that's
This is
of
a use
interest.
permit.
Yeah, this is a use permit. Of course, I think everything was a variance.
Back then.
I just see the condition in the minutes that it can't be enlarged or built over from what they got approved in 2006. And I don't see anything additional in the staff report.
That's why I caught my attention was that there was the thing about not being built over. And this would appear that they were building over if they had already built it.
Right. I think we know that it wasn't built though, right?
No, it wasn't
It
built.
was not built.
So then we know that they're not going to build over it.
True.
So we
Right.
wouldn't be violating that.
But the question was the setback. that
Can-
they
Yeah.
have a-
Can a use permit overrule a variance? And can we allow, can we approve a use permit that would allow a built over a variance? Just out of curiosity?
If the variance was never built, it exists as an entitlement, but it doesn't have to be used.
Do we have the power to just say this thing doesn't exist anymore?
Mm-mm. No, we can't let's reopen it. It was a different owner, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, well, that's,
We digress. I think that this is utterly approvable with a minimum ask here. So
yeah, I'm happy to move.
I am
this.
happy to entertain a motion, or I can make one.
I can make a motion.
Ms.
I don't think you can make a motion.
Of course they can.
You guys wouldn't ever let me. I could have, those meetings could have gone even faster. All right, I'll make a motion. I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit V-11853-23-UP-1, subject to the conditions.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Arthur, seconded by Ms. Malice for approval of this use permit. Any further discussion? Hearing,
Just want to thank the applicants for chasing down those last signatures. That makes it easier for us.
and their explanation for the missing signature. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Ms. Malice,
Aye.
Ms. Freshman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to grant the application passes 5-0. Mr. Bowen, I believe our next case on the agenda was already approved.
That's correct. Case number V-11854-23-UP-3 was approved as part of the group motion at the start of the hearing. So the following case after that is case number V-11855-23-VA-1. This is a variance request by Muhammad and Stephanie Ali, the owners, to permit a new addition which exceeds 50% of the floor area contained in the existing building regarding a new rear addition to an existing semi-detached dwelling in the R27 zoning district on the premises known as 2737 South Ewell Street within the Long Branch Creek Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution approving the variance request with conditions. Please note that we do not have any speakers who have signed up to speak on this case, nor do we have any supplemental materials.
Any questions for staff? Applicants I see are in front of me. Would you like to speak to your application?
Turn this
Please-
on. Okay, I
please
think I
go
got
ahead.
it on. There we go. And this is my husband Mo, and I'm Stephanie, and this is our daughter Kenzie, one of our kids. So good evening, and thank you for taking the time to hear from us. We really appreciate it. My husband and I are seeking a variance so that we can build an addition to our home so that we can have reasonable, affordable living conditions and remain in Arlington, where we love to live. So we have our 5-year-old with us, and at home with our wonderful babysitter, we also have a 7-year-old and a 1-year-old. So we're a family of 5, and our current home has 2 bedrooms. Our proposed addition would abide by all side and rear setbacks, and every single neighbor we've asked about this project is fully supportive. Many of the homes in our neighborhood already have additions, and in fact, we know of 2 homes on our same block that have an addition that exceeds this 50% square footage rule. And those owners did not get a variance, by the way. So we understand from watching past hearings that some board members are seeking to get the zoning ordinance changed regarding this 50% square footage rule. And we hope that happens. We also plead with you to approve our case tonight because time is of the essence for us so that we can get this construction done, hopefully, and the cost does not increase for us. Thank you very much for considering our application. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to discuss with you.
Thank you. Would your 5-year-old like to speak to this?
You would? You want to say something?
Please approve the plan.
Aw.
Well played, parents. That was good.
She wants her bedroom.
I have a 5-year-old at home too, so I had a sense that was coming.
Completely spontaneous.
Oh yeah, completely spontaneous. It's perfect.
Questions for this applicant or their 5-year-old? Thank you. Discussion with the board. Or a motion.
My feelings are known.
We know where this is going. Right.
I'm happy to make a motion. I gotta scroll again though. All right, I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached proposed resolution approving the variance V-11855-23-VA-1, subject to the conditions.
A second.
Motion made by Ms. Arthurs and seconded by Ms. Clark. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Malice.
I will, as you know, I won't be supporting this, but I also do want to clarify something. The BZA is not seeking to change this.
Okay.
The county board, through its ordinance, has said what they wish. So we are adhering to what we believe is their wish. What we are doing is bringing to their attention the fact that this is an ongoing issue, and that should they wish to change this, that they're aware that there's an issue here. We don't advocate one way or the other. We try to enforce what's been adopted.
Any other comments? I will call the roll. Ms. Malice,
No.
Ms. Freshman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes no. The motion to grant the application passes 3-2. Congratulations. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Mr. Bowen. Please call the next case, which I think was on the consent agenda.
Yes, I was confirming that there's 3 cases left on the whole agenda, but only 1 case that was not reviewed as part of the consent agenda. So this current case we're about to read is the last case on the agenda. And that is case number V-11856-23-UP-1. This is a use permit request by William Archer on behalf of Kristen Ball, the owner, to permit a rear setback of 19 feet to the wall, 18.2 feet to the eave of the addition instead of 25 feet to the wall, 21 feet to the eave as required, to permit a right side setback of 10 feet to the wall of the addition instead of 13 feet as required, and to permit an aggregate side yard width of 17.2 feet instead of 21 feet as required, regarding a new rear addition and right side addition to an existing one-family dwelling in the R8 zoning district on the premises known as 5556 16th Street North within the Terra Leeway Heights Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting a use permit subject to the conditions listed. We do not have any speakers who have signed up to speak on this case, nor do we have any supplemental materials that have been submitted.
Are there any questions for staff on this application?
I just have a comment.
Yes, Ms. Freshman.
It appears that the survey is 1986.
Eek.
Oh.
Doesn't staff?
And all of the drawings are hand drawings. So I don't, in theory, have a problem with the application per se, but I find it a little disconcerting to have something that is close to a cocktail napkin concept.
I believe we've deferred cases before that had similar handwritten drawings because we don't have the certifications from a surveyor or an architect about the dimensions.
I think that's my issue, is that it's a little informal for something that is binding.
I don't have so much of a problem with the hand drawn, but more the survey. Right, because the hand drawn has dimensions on them. And so, the applicant would be, adhere to those dimensions. But as we see from the 4 cases on the agenda from tonight, with more recent surveys had problems, right? So I would really have pause, and Ms. Arthurs would speak to this probably better than anyone on the board. A survey from 1986, I think.
Oh, the technology is completely different now.
When this applicant goes to finalize their building permit, the county will require a wall check. And if that wall check is any different than what we approved today, my recollection is that they would be back before us and with a pretty hefty fee tacked onto that.
Yes, that's correct. And Meg may be able to speak more to the guidance provided to the applicant as she wrote this staff report. I believe our minimum submission requirements have been met here. We did have 1 certified plat, albeit an old one. We recommend surveys that are 10 years or newer, but we do not require them. And the hand drawings are not an issue for us as they demonstrate what the setbacks will be, which is the subject of the BZA use permit. Generally speaking, some applicants do tend to wait until to see the outcome of the BZA's decision before investing in an architect to get more formal finalized drawings.
I can understand that. That was
Yeah.
quite expensive.
So, I don't, I take Ms. Freshman's comments, but if this applicant accepts that risk of, having the, 40-some-year-old, 38-year-old new survey, not differing too much from the one that will be gotten in the next year. I guess that's on the applicant. We did not receive any feedback from neighbors, disapproving of these plans, which were presumably shown to them and signed off by some or most neighbors.
I would like to say that the concept sketch is quite lovely.
I was actually, yeah, I mean, I when I looked at it, I was like, wow, that was hand drawn.
I couldn't do that.
And in fact, I was going to ask
under
the
any
applicant.
circumstance.
I was going to ask the applicant if they drew that, right?
I also just wanted to mention, I don't know if you saw the note that said the purchase of the home has not been finalized.
I did not see that.
On May 12th, there was a note from Ms. Ball saying that the William Archer and Jean are entering into a contract to purchase the home, and they authorized the submission to the BZA of an application for variance.
And perhaps that sale is contingent upon our decision tonight. I don't know. I mean, the applicant will speak to that.
Which probably is why. they didn't want
Or
to
maybe it
address.
has, or maybe the sale has completed and we just don't have an update.
I can tell you. I'll look it
So
up.
perhaps we should hear from the applicant.
The applicant may be able to shed some light on these questions. Yes.
So just to clarify, Mr. Archer is the applicant, but the owner is Ms. Ball.
That's correct.
Right.
Mr. Archer is also the rear neighbor, adjacent neighbor.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was that last part?
Mr. Archer is also the rear adjacent neighbor.
Oh, one happy family here.
Yeah,
And I just, on the issue of drawings, our condition does say that they have to be, that the project has to be built in accordance with the drawings submitted. So if an architect comes in subsequently and starts doing something different, I think that would be a problem.
But I'd contend that that's a risk that, if the applicant wants to take that risk, hearing us in this discussion. Is the applicant in the room with us? No. Is the applicant online?
Do not see him online.
Oh, well, that gets more interesting.
I don't think the sale's gone through according to Arlington County records.
Based on conversations that I've had with Mr. Archer in the past, I think he was interested in potentially purchasing the house if he could get the BZA use permit. So that's why he's kind of done concept plans to see if it's an idea to preserve the existing house and add on to it instead of demolishing and building a brand new house.
I sure wish the applicant were here tonight.
Yes, I do
Well,
too.
We typically don't act if the applicant's not here.
Is there?
Yeah, I
anything
wouldn't be comfortable with our discussion we had.
Yeah.
Which was
we
for our
just-
benefit, not
Not
the
his.
applicant's benefit. I clearly wouldn't want to move forward.
Get a
So-
new survey and come back in October.
Shall
I think
defer?
we can defer this item with their suggestion, I guess, that the applicant consider an up-to-date survey.
I mean, even if a survey is $500, it's not like they would pay $15,000 to $20,000 for architectural drawings, but something that gave us the real dimensions of the property so that we can make an informed decision about the
What the
setbacks.
Actual setbacks are, well, I realize, kind of feel more like I'm protecting the applicant.
Yeah, no, like I said, like I said, my personal view is that I would go forward on this, but the applicant would be on notice that if that survey comes back
Yeah.
significantly different or even just slightly different, they'll be back here with paying thousands of dollars. So,
2 inches is,
right,
that's it.
exactly. So,
I'm-
and
It's not it's not a square or rectangular lot. Like it's not a normal lot.
It's
looking,
not, it's,
so
it is,
I want to highlight a point that Ms. Freshman just said to the October meeting, because we're going to be really busy in September. I don't know if anyone else caught that.
I heard October, I'm fine with October.
Yeah, I would support that.
yeah, this request also needs some additional neighborhood support.
all right.
Motion from Ms. Arthurs.
Sure. I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals defer the proposed resolution for the use permit, I'm making this up, for use permit V-11856-23-UP-1 to the October 2023 BZA meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Arthurs, seconded by Ms. Freshman, to defer to the October BZA hearing date. Is there any further discussion?
October 11th.
October 11th. Yeah.
October 11th. Thank you.
I definitely wasn't on the spot there.
My only comment for staff is to please direct the applicant to this video that will be posted online.
Will do.
Is there any further discussion? I will call the roll. Ms. Malice,
Aye.
Ms. Freshman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Mr. Chair votes aye. The motion to defer this application passes 5-0. We almost had like a full agenda approved. So close.
Mr.
Minute.
Chairman,
Ms. Freshman,
I move approval of the minutes of June 14, 2023 BZA meeting.
Second.
on a motion by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Ms. Malice to approve the meeting minutes from June. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Malice.
Aye.
Ms. Freshman.
Aye.
Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Abstain.
That's right. Chair votes aye. The motion to pass the minutes passes 4-0 with one abstention.